Rachel here from the NOIC Godcast, where we offer wacky wisdom weekly from God's Word. Today we're going to take a look into Darlene Deibler's story and how, though she faced extreme conditions, it was still the better cup. So recently I read Darlene Deibler Rose, The Evidence of Things Not Seen. It's a good book, and I want to say I recommend it because it is a good book, but it's like very uncomfortable to read.
Yeah.
But it was a good book.
So read at your own discretion.
Yeah. Okay. But in a Cliff Notes version, her and her husband were missionaries to Papua New Guinea during World War II. Mm-hmm. They were both sent, I believe that they started, like they went over there before the war, and the war started once they were there. They were both captured and put into separate prisons, and in the one prison is where her husband ended up dying. She lived for 4 years in very extreme conditions in her camp. They often had to run to the trenches any time of day or night for safety because there'd be bombings going overhead. Like they never know when it's going to happen. Yep. Food was scarce, not good. They ate,
wasn't McDonald's.
No, they had to eat bugs sometimes and just not good conditions.
Any protein that they can get.
Yeah, and it was terrible. She had they had to work. They had to keep, I don't know, like that's why they were imprisoned, or what they were doing while they were in prison was working. And the favorable job was to clean up after the pigs. Oh, that was the good job that you wanted. Yeah. She was put into solitary confinement, sentenced to death, but through God, she was released. Her story is just filled with amazing stories after amazing stories of God's provision, countless times. I think sometimes when we think of God providing for us, we think of our flesh being comfy and cozy. Yes. That was very, very, very far from the truth for Darlene. Yeah. He was still providing for Darlene. Dare I say, he was providing for her even more than I realize he provides for me. Yep. But she had nothing. Yeah. Literally everything she had was taken. But he was proving that he was all that she really needed. Yes. She was stripped of everything she had. She didn't know anyone. Her husband was gone. Eventually, even all of her physical possessions had been burned through a bombing, but God remained with her. There were times that she questioned and even doubted, but he never failed or left her. I think that sometimes when we hear missionary stories and things that we hear the fun, like all of the good stories, you know what I mean? And sometimes
like this person got saved, this person got saved.
Or the miracles that God is doing. And this book goes, she struggled. Her life was hard. And she was like, I can't do this. Countless times. One of my favorite stories is the banana story. I'll have to tell you after the podcast. But she doubted God. Yeah. And yet he still came through to her. And so that's one thing I liked about the book was that it brought out the good, bad, and the ugly.
Well, I think that's the thing is I really do believe in this. So just as much as we do in the social media age, put only the good out there. Everyone's life looks perfect.
Or we see a small clip of their life and we just assume they've got it all together.
Well, that's the thing is not only do you only get a small piece, but that small piece, the person that puts it on there has control over what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that a lot of times in ministry work, and I don't think it's wrong for missionaries to come and tell the good things because we need to know the good things. We don't want it to all be bad. But I do think that we can be blindsided by, it's just going over there. We can glamorize ministry because we'll be you go over there and you see so many people saved. And but do you think about even today we had some missionaries come and speak, and they do amazing work. And to think about, so they didn't have jobs. So they don't have their own income, of their own, that's theirs. So think about only having money that is sent to you and having to live off of that.
You're relying on someone to keep you going.
Not even just that. Think about the things that frivolous things that I want a McDonald's Coke. I know that you probably didn't have McDonald's Coke there, but I want a McDonald's Coke. Well, I shouldn't probably be spending these other people's money on this. Do you know what I mean? That guilt of, items that we don't even like, we go on Amazon and buy everything that we want. Like, they are given this money, and so to have that, even just to know that it's not your money. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that that's stuff that we don't even think about. We just glamorize the thought of, going here and getting, doing God's work is just so much fun.
There's a lack of realness.
Yes. And it's sad because it's not that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that speaking to your fact about how people want to portray a, glamorous life and everything, I think sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times as Christians, when we're like witnessing to someone or something, like we tell them the good things that God has done for us, and we kind of gloss over
the bad things in our life.
The bad things that happened, or a lot of times we don't go into depth about how far lost we were. You know what I mean? And like kind of like that's kind of like what they need to hear. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because like if you just tell them like, I was doing okay and I woke up and found God and I'm doing better now. And they're gonna be like, but example, like I'm a drug addict. Yeah. Sleeping on people on their couches. Yep. You know what I mean? Like they need to know that even in those moments, God is with them. Yes. Okay. And God will provide for them. So we, even as Christians, we tend to just make like the good side of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Exactly. And we even take like Good Friday. We often turn a blind eye to how brutally bad that day was. Not just because I always say like, that was a horrible day. And like, we don't even name Saturday. You know what I mean? It's just like, did anybody just sleep on Saturday?
Yeah,
like,
everyone was like, what? I'm done.
That was a horrible Friday. I should just sleep all day. Yeah. And, you know what I mean? So, really, if a Christian is living a worrisome or a worryless life, like, are you really working for Christ? Because if you are, Satan, you're on his radar. Yes. Okay. So he's not going to let you just. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's going to be throwing all kind of rocks at you. Yep. So.
And I think that's one thing. Actually, you just brought up the Good Friday thing. I remember we just went to the Veil is Torn for the Easter service, and I was speaking to someone after, and they were like, oh, I guess they probably should have let us know that, like it was going to be kind of gory for like the kids.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like, no, they need to know that.
Right.
Because we kidify a lot of things. And there's a difference between kidifying something and simplifying it. Because I do believe that kids need a simplified version of things because they can't comprehend the massive thing. We can't even comprehend a lot of things. Right. But to kidify everything really does them no favors. Right. And while it hurt to see them struggle through those things, like I know Callan had a really hard time with it. Like it was hard to see them struggle with it, but they need to see that. They need to know that that's what happened. Yeah. And that's the same thing with this, is that she is allowing people to see in her ministry that it was not easy. Yeah. Right. It was not all fun and games. It wasn't just seeing people saved. It was hard.
Yeah. Well, it makes her relatable because like, I mean, I've obviously never been imprisoned for 4 years.
What?
Oh. Starving to death.
2 years?
But
2 years.
I've been in prison for 2 years.
Yeah. Oh. About 10 years.
We made you forget.
But like even through the heartaches that I go through, when I doubt God and I read that she went through extremes and she doubted God, it just makes it relatable to know like I'm not, losing my mind, or I'm not a weak Christian just because I doubted. Like it's normal. And being able to be real, so that way it seems normal.
I remember the first time that I shared the whole testimony of me working as an STNA, and I thought that nobody wanted me at church, like that whole thing. I remember your dad coming up to me and was like, I would have never thought that you, of all people, would have felt that way. Because he had felt that way when he fell off the roof and like had, the devil just plays tricks on your mind, regardless of anything that you're going through. It doesn't matter what phase of life you're going through or what you're going through. He's going to try to throw those things at you. Yeah. And he's like, I would have never thought that you would have felt those things. And so I think that's another lie that the devil tells us, is that, oh, you're a bad Christian because you feel this way.
You're the only one that's ever felt that.
Yeah, like exactly. If you were a good Christian, you wouldn't feel that way. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
I think that the Bible does call for us for perfection. Okay. But I think that Satan takes that and twists it. You know what I mean? Because though we're called to be perfect, we're forgiven when we're not perfect. Okay, so Satan basically, I think one of his go-to, plans is that, look, you're not perfect. Yeah. So and clearly it says here you have to be perfect. Yeah. And you're not perfect. Like and that's such a basic, fact of the matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, it does say I should be perfect. But I'm not perfect. Yeah.
So why try?
I mean?
We've actually heard that said in our church. There was a member that said, well, if I can't be exactly like Jesus, then why even try?
Right. Now, growing up, I was always told, live every day like Jesus. But you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But live every day like Jesus, knowing you're going to fail. You know what I mean?
Well, even think about like what we talked about last week with Job. He was named a perfect, blameless man. He was not perfect nor blameless.
No.
He was just as sinful as all of us. But the only difference is that he believed in God and he loved God so much. His heart wanted to be what God wanted. And I think that's the thing is that people get mixed up. It's not a... Like, especially since Jesus has came and paid for our sins, there's no longer a death sacrifice that has to happen physically. Right. I mean, some people will go on to die for the Lord, but it's not we have to do that to get to heaven. But the problem is that, like, people equate perfect with absolute matching everything on this list. And that's not what perfection means. He wants you to be in tune with him. God knows more than anybody that we're not perfect.
Exactly.
Like he knows that we're flesh filled. And that's the reason why he wants us to cling to him, to go to him. And that's where it's that heart thing. It's not necessarily, I'm not, killing people. I'm not doing this. Right. It's, I love God. What does he want me to do?
But I think that what Satan tries to do and what a lot of people who try to argue these things, they're referring to a worldly perfection.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to be perfect in this. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, obviously, like Jesus set the bar pretty high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So none of us can reach that bar. And like you said, some people are like, well, why are we even trying? But it's a matter of the heart.
Yeah.
Okay. And is your heart truly seeking God? Yeah. Is your heart truly seeking his righteousness? You know what I mean? I think that's the perfect that the Bible is referring to. Not, you know what I mean? Because your flesh, obviously, is doing everything it can to make you sin. You know what I mean? And you're not going to win every battle, with your flesh. And I like to look at it as a person before they become saved, they're comfortable with sin.
Yes.
Okay. Like even a good person, you know what I mean, is comfortable with sin. You know what I mean? Like they can be impartial towards pretty heinous things. Okay. But once a person becomes truly saved, you are no longer comfortable with sin.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It bothers you. Yeah. Like the thought of it, you know what I mean, bothers you, though you may still do it. It bothers you.
Now that you say that, it's actually pretty funny because I actually just heard somebody say the other day that we were talking about Abram and he went into Egypt and the whole thing of, lying that, his wife was his sister and that's the whole thing. But they said that the time that he was in Egypt, he did not sacrifice while he was in Egypt, which meant that he was comfortable with the sin that was happening.
Right. Right.
That you just said that you got comfortable with sin. That just like brought that to me. Like he was comfortable with the sin in that season. And I think that even us as Christians, when we kind of pull away from God, we can kind of feel comfortable. There is a chastisement. It's the whole thing of you do it once, it stings a little. You do it twice. It doesn't feel as bad this time. You do it 3 times. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that's another thing that as Christians, it's not even I won't go to heaven. That's the problem, is that everybody based their entire Christianity on being able to go to heaven, and that's not what God ever called for.
Exactly.
God called for us to have a life abundant here.
Yes.
And so that life abundant doesn't just come from, I followed this list of rules, this and this. It comes from loving him. Yeah. And I think that's where everybody gets really messed up, and they're like, how much can I do and still go to heaven? That is, if you're asking that question,
you're in the wrong business.
You've got a little bit of, you've got some splainings to do.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Back to you, man.
Back to the regular schedule program.
So through her doubting and questioning, God often would whisper a Bible verse in her ear. She had a lot of the Bible memorized because I don't know that she was able to have a Bible with her through the solitary confinement, but and that's what would keep her going. She survived when all odds were against her, and she made it back to the States after the war was over. When she was first leaving, she was very hurt and very angry for all that place and the people there had taken from her. And she told herself that I'm never coming back to this place. You can just think of all of the memories that she had from being there. But as they were eventually pulling away, I believe the people started chanting something to her, and she just said, I'll be back. Like, it just kind of came out, and she was moved, and she was like, I do want to come back.
Yeah.
She had nothing to her name at that point. She was going back to America where she would get healthy again and she could still do work for the Lord there, you know, where it's comfy and easier. But she had that desire to go back to those people. She eventually married again to Jerry Rose. And together they went back to Papua New Guinea to serve as missionaries. Through conditions that we can't even imagine, Darlene found God was enough for her when she had nothing else. Her life truly seemed bitter, but by being brought closer to God, I would have to think that she would agree that it was a better cup. How often in our lives when things start getting taken away from us or a little bit hard, we withdraw from God. Maybe we don't even realize it. We'll skip a day or two of reading, or maybe we'll pray a little shorter, or maybe we won't pray for a few days. When all he was wanting was to prove to us that these things we fill our lives are just that, they're fillers. He truly is all we need. He strips away piece by piece to where we're left with full contentment in him.
You know, the one thing that I can, like, from the way that, like, our ministries are, the only thing I can, like, it wouldn't compare, but the only thing I can compare is, like, when we're done with camp and, you know, we've had up to here with everything, like problems and disappointments and trying to make sure everything's running smoothly, doing this, doing that moment when it's all over, it's like, I want to do it again. You know what I mean?
There's something, like, contagious about, like, getting rid of more and more of you. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, after camp, I feel like we're very, like, pure and, like, we've stripped away a lot of ourselves, a lot of our flesh, and we've gotten really close to God. And I think everyone that comes to camp really experiences that. And that's kind of, like, addictive, if I can use that word reverently, but, like, once you start experiencing it, like, you want it more and more and more.
And it's so funny because, like, I think that's the reason why it's hard on everybody, though, because they forget about it because when they go back home.
Because it's so quickly you go back to your normal life, and so quickly you start picking all those pieces back up.
And then you go right back to the next year of camp, and you're like, wow, how can I not just live this every day? And then you're like,
Sure.
I think part of that, you know, reflecting back on a perfection thing, and I've only experienced camp once, and it was last year at Tornado.
And it was one day.
Couple days.
Yeah,
It was like 1 or 2 days.
2 days. But anyway, so in preparing for camp, we're aiming for a perfect camp. I mean, if you think about it, like that's what we're trying to do. Like, you know, we have a list of we're going to do this, and everyone's going to fall in line, and everything is planned. And, you know, we've crossed all our T's and dotted all of our I's before we leave. We get on the road. We get there, and something starts to go sideways.
And it explodes for whatever reason.
Okay, right? So instead of, like, just realizing that if our heart's in the right place, you know, and we're doing this for God, when things start to go sideways, that could be God saying, listen, I appreciate your plan, but that's not my plan. So I need to make your plan go sideways to fit my plan.
We've had that happen a couple times.
A few times.
Right.
A couple times. Learned that lesson more than once.
So if I say, like, the stress of things going sideways doesn't necessarily have to mean, like, a bad sideways. Okay, because even in our own personal lives, like, we set agendas of what I want to do today, what I want to do this week, this month, this year. Okay, and God looks at our plan and is like, "Oh, you tried, but that's not where I need you to go." So things start to go sideways.
And I think it's really important, especially, like, camp is one thing because, like, it's a really big
part of our lives.
It's a big part of our lives, and it's a big ordeal. Like, it's not like it's like two people getting together. You know what I mean? It's a big deal. So there is, like, planning involved, different things, and there are, to some extent, you have to be able to be quick on your feet about things because things just don't want to work out, or they, you know, things go weird. However, I think it's really important to balance the adapt, overcome, and trust in God, because as planners, we're very good at, okay, let's just pick up this, let's do this. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes we can overstep God because God is telling us to go a different way, and we just, oh, I know that this fell over, and I know you knocked it over, but I'm going to fix it again. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I think that's what we're really good for. Now, again, I don't think that, oh, that went bad. I guess we're just going to have to sit here for a little bit and see what's supposed to happen. But I think there are some things that we need to be a little bit more in tune with God on.
It's kind of like the book during the first escape room.
Oh,
or we would knock it on the ground. So it's like
gosh.
God knocks it on the ground. We're like, oh, someone dropped that. God goes back by, puts it on the ground again.
How many kids said, someone dropped a book on the ground, put it right back in there. Dude, that has the key in it.
But I think God does that in our lives.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to, like I said, be more in tune with God. Okay. Because I don't think it's a matter of not trusting God. You know what I mean? But, God provides us with everything we need. Yes. But also, we can't sit on the couch and watch our life
and
go by.
Hope that he fixes it.
Exactly. Like, we have to take action.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we have to discern, like, is this action what God wants done? You know what I mean? Or is God trying to do something and my action is against what he's trying to do?
And I think that when you come up to like like camp and stuff like that, the more that you are like, the more you get rid of you and the more that you're in tune with God, the more of your adapt and overcome will be the things that he wants. Like when you move quick on your feet, it's not going to be, oh, this is what I think it needs to be. This is what God is showing me to be. Does that make sense? So you're going to, the more you get rid of it, that's the problem, is that you just need to get rid of yourself. And that's hard.
Yes. I mean, we tend to love ourselves.
Yes,
and
for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
So our considerable quote for today is
really long.
Really long if I can actually get through all of it. It was one of those moments when I thought the Lord had left me. I turned away and said, God, and he immediately spoke to me. He said, my child, did I not say to you that when you pass through the waters, and these are waters of sorrow, that I would be with you, and through floods they would not overflow you, and neither will the fire kindle upon you? I said, all right, Lord. In the night hours of the tears would flow, and then my Lord would come to me, and he would speak peace to my heart, and I learned experimentally about the comfort of the Holy Spirit. That's from Darlene Deibler, Rose herself. The featured content this week is More Than Enough by Chris Tomlin. And our Charge Up Challenge is a little different this week. I hope this is allowed.
I think it's loud.
Okay.
Josh is here. We can do whatever we want. There are no rules.
There's one rule.
There's one rule.
Have you been practicing that? That was
really good.
off the cuff.
I want to challenge you to do something very, very simple this week. Every single person, all three of you can do this. I challenge you to take just a few minutes to watch the full Skit Guys Chisel video. There's actually a remastered version, and that's the one that I linked for you guys. It's just really good. It's like maybe 11 minutes long.
Yeah, it's not very long.
But it's really, really good. So try to watch all the way to the end because we're like 3-second attention span people.
Oh my goodness.
So try to stay tuned for the whole 11 minutes.
It's good.
It's a good one. And I challenge you guys to go watch that this week. The trivia answer from last week, though the question was, which one's not?
Which one was not one of Job's friends?
You said my mom got it right?
She answered.
Yeah, she got it right. She got it right.
Okay.
All right.
So good job, Mom. The correct answer was B,
Did she
Amram.
call you and ask you the answer?
No.
No, okay. All right. No. Good job, Sister Renee.
This week's, I almost said this year, this week's question, for some reason I just couldn't
You can get that right.
Trivia, that's the word I was looking for. What year was our first tornado scare? We didn't have an actual tornado this year. It was like 5 miles down the road or something like that.
That's close enough. That's a tornado.
Oh, are you talking about the tornado? Are you talking
The
where?
first time.
The first time?
Yeah.
You said this year.
Oh. What is the first?
You said this year was we didn't have it it was down the road.
No,
That's
like the year that I'm talking about. The
like
year that I'm referencing.
It was in the county over.
Yeah, so it was very close.
But the sirens were going off.
Yeah, we had to still be in safety forever. It felt like forever.
Yeah, it was. And we sang songs. And we gave popcorn.
So, where did we get popcorn from?
We gave out popcorn and water, and we watched movie.
We did eventually, yeah. It was an interesting time.
That's a good thing.
One little church building with all of us in there. But anyway,
no air conditioning.
What year was this? Was it A, 2015, B, 2016, C, 2017, or D, 2018? I was afraid to put this question because I don't want people to think that we're tornado magnets.
We are.
We're also in Ohio, and tornadoes happen.
Ohio in the middle of June is just a thing.
That happens. So. Be sure to comment below. Leave us any questions or comments or concerns. Share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so I said this and Jacob thought it was crazy. And I need to know if I'm actually crazy.
I mean, yes.
7 times 7 equals 49.
Good job.
That feels like a Thursday.